Old Fahmy Malak passed away August 21st.
He lived to be an old man, though, right? Like, was he in his 80s?
Well, I don't know. In the 80s, he looked like he's in his 80s.
He's one of those guys that, like, I think when he was probably born, like...
When he was 20, he became 80.
Yeah. He looked old when we... Like you said, at the time of that case, of the Boys on the Tracks case.
Yeah, but we had a lot of fun with Fahmy Malak, and the Phil and Fahmy shirts I put as a 20% off.
Okay.
$19.99.
I just looked. So he died. Fahmy Malak died Tuesday the 21st at the age of 85 is what this says.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like
85 years too long.
Sounds like he was in Clearwater, Florida.
Yeah, if you look
really
more,
bringing down the class level of Clearwater, Florida.
Well, you know how that, when he was in Arkansas, how they ended up moving him to a different department, and then from there he took a job somewhere. And I was reading that I think he was up to making $165,000 a year,
and he clearly
that's a lot of cheddar, my friend.
And he clearly he's either corrupt as hell or dumb as hell and just doesn't know how to perform his job.
I mean, give me $65,000 a year and I'll do his job.
So Fahmy Malak has passed away. We have Fahmy Malak t-shirts.
Yeah,
right? But here's the problem.
I marked them down to $19.99.
Here's the problem with selling t-shirts with Fahmy Malak on the t-shirt. Because not only was he old looking in the 80s, he was also very ugly in the 80s. He's an ugly man.
Yeah, but they're nice t-shirts.
I love the phrase "feeling Fahmy." Yeah. I just still laugh about it to this day.
All right, let's get a little serious because we got a lot of updates on the Molly Tibbetts case that we should get to.
So my first thoughts here, Captain, are a couple things. I did talk to a lot of people last week when the shows came out on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Talking to a lot of people. People reached out to me. A lot of great feedback. People loved that we were trying to cover something as it was happening. Some people thought maybe we rushed it a bit. I did have a couple people that said, hey, you should have just waited until the press conference and told us what really happened. We would have waited for the episode. And my response to that is, unfortunately, that wasn't an option. We didn't have the choice of doing that. And we were actually doing something last week for the first time. It was new for us, as many shows as we've done, to do something that news is breaking as we are recording the episodes. And
I think there was some confusion because our goal was to just talk about our disappearance. On the way to the garage, I get a text message saying that they found Molly. And so that changed things. So I think there were some listeners that just thought because there was breaking news in the morning that we just jumped on the case.
No.
And that was not the case. We're going to try to shine light on her disappearance and maybe, help get some closure, but then it happened all that day.
Yeah, we were going to cover it anyway. We were going to talk specifically about what was known about the disappearance, what some of the theories were on the internet and some of the rumors coming out of Brooklyn, Iowa. That was our intent. And it takes me, depending on traffic, 45 minutes to maybe slightly over an hour to meet up with you in the garage on some days. And what happened last week was, before I left my house, I actually Googled Molly Tibbetts just to see that by chance was there some kind of update, because they were looking, and I'll tell you what, man, I cannot say enough about the investigation and the investigators that were involved in that. They worked their asses off and they didn't quit. They weren't going to quit until they found some answers. And so because of that, I hit the old Google machine right before I left my house, and I said, hey, was there any updates? No, nothing at that time. I drive here, and I can't remember. I wasn't listening to the radio, so they may have made an announcement on the radio, but whatever I was listening to, probably sports or something like that, was not going to have an update. So I pull up, You're already at the garage. I get out of my car and you go, they found her. And you know what? To be honest with you, I thought you were just fucking with me because
because I make jokes like that all the time.
Well, no, not that it would be a bad joke, just that it, anytime. So when we select a case, okay, sometimes we select them weeks in advance. Sometimes we select them for next week. And with Molly's case, it was in the news. We selected it for the next week.
Yeah,
and
well, we also were getting hundreds of emails saying, bring attention to this case, please.
it would have been straight up rude to the listeners had we not covered it because we received so just an outpour of people wanting to know more about the case and to keep it on everyone's mind. And so when we started, when we decided we were going to cover it, one thing that we kind of chatted about as we would talk about the case throughout the week was, they could find her at any moment.
Right.
There could be breaking news on this at any moment. We just need to be aware of that. We need to constantly remind ourselves to check and check and check and check. And that's why what I mean is that I thought you were messing with me. I thought because that's where our last conversation was. And I pull up and the reason too, I had just checked before I left my house. You're like,
right. And
they found her. And I'm like, really? When? I gave you one of those little attitude. Really? When?
Right. And the tough thing here too is there was a lot of, I believe her father is a, very intelligent man. And he had a gut feeling that she was alive and that somebody took her. And I kept thinking, well, maybe it's going to be a good scenario where they do find her within that time frame of us researching the case, but that she's alive. And then when we get the sad news that she's found dead, it just kind of changed everything for our show, and we just try to do the best we can. And again, one of the reasons why we can't wait is we have a schedule that we committed to, and that's how we're able to have advertisers, and they're able to fund the show so people can listen for free. So,
well, essentially, so just so everybody understands, this most simple way to break this down is we were punting. We weren't drawing up plays and calling them. We were punting. We were adapting to a situation that was, it was a tough one to be in, and not because of the podcast, but because of we're getting breaking news, and it's not news that we want to hear. It's sad news.
Well, let's get to what we do know now.
Okay. So there was an individual that was arrested. Okay. And we learned this from the press conference. And the thing that's so interesting to me here, Captain, two things that I saw in this investigation that you don't see in every single investigation. One, the police worked incredibly hard on this, and it seemed like they were all one front. It was all one group working in unison together. They were going to get this thing and solve this thing as soon as possible. The other thing that was interesting, we talked about the community of only 1,400 people. First thing I noticed in the press conference was how many times they being law enforcement, said this community helped us solve this case. This community was involved in this investigation.
Right.
Everybody that knew anything or thought they saw anything,
they were coming forward. And then there was also anybody that was coming forward that had any video footage was coming forward and submitting that video footage, or any store that they asked for video footage, they were receiving that with no fight back at all. Where sometimes people will say, we don't have to give you our surveillance footage until you get a warrant for it.
And when we were trying to put together the episodes, you heard us there. We took a break because we thought we had the name of the individual that was arrested. It turns out that that man was not arrested, as far as I know.
No, and he actually possibly was one of the guys that helped get video footage.
Right. He may have had some kind of, we talk about different security systems here on our program from time to time. You can have these that are set up to have video surveillance. And he may have had just that and offering that up. And that may be where his name came from.
Yeah, and we got that. We were recording live, and a very credible source that I talk about a lot on the show, my buddy Morgan, was giving us the information. He was the individual that texted me earlier on my way to the garage saying that they found her. So he is a very credible source, and he was digging for information, thought that was the name, and it was misreported in the report he was reading to me. Mm-hmm. So that's how we got the name. And you want to talk about feeling like a dick nose. I mean, I'm going to feel like a dick nose forever for, having this individual associated with that he was arrested for her murder.
Well,
nobody deserves that. And I deepest apologies to him because, like we said, we were just going off the fly.
Yeah. And Morgan, who was trying to help us out. Mm-hmm. I love that guy too, man, because he has apologized 1,000 times for, hey, and it's like, it was great to know that he was passionate about the case too, because he wasn't just going, oh, well, it happened. Wasn't just kind of brushing it off. He was over apologetic. And
well, he's super passionate about the true crime community, True Crime Garage, True Crime listeners. So hopefully we get him on the show. I mean, he's been begging to be on a off the record show. He's been begging for it.
If we ever sell out of Fahmy Malik shirts, then that will be next on our list.
Morgan be on the show.
So the man that was actually arrested in this case is 24-year-old Christian Riviera. Mm-hmm. And he is an illegal immigrant living in the Brooklyn, Iowa area. He had lived there. We're getting a little bit of sketchy news. And what I mean by that is because he was living and working there illegally, let's say off the books.
Well, he was actually on the books. So where he worked, I actually believe that he worked at the pig farm. And
he was a farmer. He worked farm land. I don't know for certain that it was the pig
but remember how the pig farm became not a pig farm? Mm-hmm. The reports that I've seen said that it's part of that group.
Okay.
So that's why they would find some stuff, the red shirt. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was hers, maybe it wasn't, but they found some stuff in that area. And he gave false information to that employer.
Right.
So, but again, I think these employers need to do a little bit better of a job of researching that information that they're getting.
I'm not going to pretend to have complete understanding of how that works, but from what I've read is that there's something called an e-verification process.
Right.
And supposedly the information he provided to them, to the employer, he passed all of that e-verification process.
Here's where the problem becomes. So you pass the e-verification whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And then they give you a check. And then you have that same information that you gave the employer. The illegal immigrant has that same information that they gave the employer to get the job illegally. Then they go get a bank account. And so we're talking about checks and balances that people didn't do.
Right.
I've had several times where people have come into me and they go, well, here's my ID and here's my check. Mm-hmm. Now, the name and everything matches, but the picture doesn't match. And maybe he had a fake ID with his picture on it. Who knows? But they have to do a better job of checking checks and balances. And if that didn't happen, if that happened correctly, then these illegal immigrants wouldn't have a chance to have a job, and maybe they wouldn't be here illegally.
So Christian Riviera, the guy that's been arrested and charged with first-degree murder, charged with the first-degree murder of Molly Tibbetts. My understanding, Captain, is that he was not using false information or fake information to have that job. He was using someone's actual legal information. That's the reports that I've read.
Yeah. He just took somebody else's information. That's why I'm saying, did the picture on his ID match him? Mm-hmm. Because the people at the bank should have known that.
Right.
So people can talk about building a wall and border patrol and all that crap, but there's stuff that people can do within their community, to alleviate some of this issue.
Right. And so my understanding is that he actually led them to her body. And this being what led them to him was surveillance footage.
Yeah.
That they had some kind of footage from somebody, we don't know who, which shows a dark colored Chevy Malibu in the area where she was jogging, where she was running.
Old shitty Malibu.
And so somehow, this has not been released, but this is me kind of guessing here, is that they somehow linked that vehicle to him.
Well, the other report too, or some speculation, is that the video actually shows that he was following her in a car, trying to talk with her through the window. And when that wasn't working, he actually stopped the car and got out. And if that was, that could be on the footage as well. They're not going to release any of that information.
Not until the trial.
Well, and his defense attorney already submitted a gag order.
Okay.
Because at the press conference, they said a lot.
Right.
A lot more than they normally say. So it's possible that he could have been following her in the car, got out of the car, which he did. That's what he confessed to. But that possibly could be on video footage.
And the words he uses is that he ran along, he ran after her and then ran alongside her, which, sorry, but that's called chasing. He was chasing her.
Or stalking.
Yeah. And at some point she says, hey, man, and I'm going to call the police. Get away from me. I'm calling the police. And this is when he says he flipped out. He got angry. And next thing he knows, he blacks out. He claims that he has these moments when he gets really angry that he blacks out. Again, claims this. He states that the next thing that he knows, he's driving and he sees a white earbud on his lap, to which then he goes, I think she might be in the trunk of my car. Well, he finds her in the trunk of his car and her head is bloodied and she's passed away at this point. To which he then takes her to a country road, to a cornfield. And my understanding, Captain, is this cornfield is somewhat near the former pig farm that we've discussed several times.
Right. But again, I think that's why I believe the report that says that he worked in some kind of conjunction with that farm.
Well, and
so he would have known that area.
And if he left her there with the Fitbit or with her phone, and either were on for any period of time, that might be why they were searching in that area.
Right.
And the thing we have to understand here is a lot of times, especially when these devices, when they lose power, when they power down, you might only get a general location of where that device is. You may not get a pinpoint location of exactly where that device is. So they could have been hunting and searching in the right area. It sounds like they were. And we can only assume that it was a Fitbit or a phone that led them there originally.
Right.
He leads them to the body, to which he had already covered it up with leaves and things from the cornfield. And the thing here is, what's crazy is there's a chance that if they wouldn't have got all this hardcore police work and found this dude through good hardcore police work,
right?
I wonder if there's a chance she may not have been found. I don't know the process of harvesting that corn, but I do know that there's big, giant machines that are used to do that. And had she not been found in advance, it might have made the process even more difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you also have, animals and nature to deal with as well.
And you know what? We've heard this crap before from some of these guys that say, hey, I blacked out. And
I think that's bullshit.
Right. And here's what it is, in my opinion, is that during the course of this time frame that he claims to have been blacked out, he did things that he is embarrassed of. He does things that he does not want to talk about or want to discuss. And that's his easy way of giving himself an easy out and just saying, hey, I blacked out during the portion of this, whatever happened then. And then I woke up and she was dead.
Yeah, that wasn't me, man. That was me when I black out.
Yeah. So he will be, he's being charged with first-degree murder. Mm-hmm. And that should come to trial. I know he's already been presented the charges, but they don't have a death penalty. So he would only be looking at life imprisonment for these charges.
And you know what he looks like, right?
Right.
Have you ever seen a goatee with the hair, but the hair is kind of up a little bit, kind of fluffed up?
Yeah, I'm looking at a picture of him right now.
He looks like that if you put it on a piece of shit.
Right, right.
No, so, but no death penalty. That will not be on the table. It'll just be life in prison. A couple, I mean, at least they're, like we talked about before, I don't know if there's ever closure. I don't know if, I mean, at least the family gets to hear the why, but I don't think that gives them closure, but at least they know the information. And I think sometimes when the families don't know the information of what happened to their loved ones, it's harder to start rebuilding and reliving their lives.
Right.
So I think, you know, our thoughts are with the family and all of our friends, and but that we've seen so many cases where people don't get any answers, and they're just left wondering. And I think that would possibly wear on you a little more.
Well, he had lived there for 7 years. And so he would be somewhat recognizable in a town of only 1,400 people.
Yeah, supposedly they didn't know each other, though.
Right.
He had a child with somebody, and that person...
with an ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, and that person has some kind of connection.
I've heard they might have been Facebook friends or something of that nature.
Maybe went to school together. And so it's possible that Molly knew of this individual, but maybe didn't know him. So the FBI profilers were correct on that when it came out that it's, and that's what's really difficult here, is because one, a lot of people were trying to make this a very political issue. I know the president talked about this. It's not a political issue. It's a horrible individual that killed somebody. I know that people are going to take it and use it either way for their agenda. But that's not what we do on this show. We don't talk politics.
You know, the articles that I've been reading over the course of this weekend it's a lot of people saying, hey, in a town this small, it's scary and terrifying for us to believe and now have the understanding of that her killer was somebody that we would see at the grocery store.
Right.
Or it would be somebody that we would pass in traffic. And I agree with that 100%. But the scary thing to me, the most terrifying part of this to me, is that split decision to decide to murder someone who we have no reason to believe that they knew each other at all. This guy apparently just was driving and saw her, and all of a sudden it goes from I see that person, I might kill that person.
Well, I think like I said, everybody's arguing, the illegal immigrant issue. It is a fact that if, he technically wasn't supposed to be here. So therefore, if he wasn't here illegally, he never would have had the chance to murder Molly. And that's true. And what I wonder is, this individual did a lot to get a job, use fake information. He went to work afterwards. And I just wonder, when she said, I'm going to call the cops, if that was the trigger, and if that becomes the motive. If she calls the cops, maybe my job didn't figure out that I'm not who I say I am. The bank didn't figure out. There's probably a bunch of other entities that didn't figure out he's not who he says he is. Maybe the cops will. And if the cops figure that out, I'm gone. And maybe that was the motive.
It was a sad week last week, and like you said, and like we said at the end of the shows last week, our thoughts and hearts are with the family, and all we can do now is take this guy to court, take him to trial, and get that guilty verdict. And that, I don't know when the healing starts, but regardless, that trial needs to happen, and it needs, that might be able to help the healing start at some point.